So looking at just these parent functions here, okay, hopefully you know these pretty well. You've got linear, which finishing off that last set of notes, the degree of a linear is what? 1. The in behavior, we'll just put the words here. So is this one going down and up or up and up? Down and up. Then you have x squared, which is a parabola. What's the degree for quadratic? 2. Up and up or down and up? Up and up. Then you have cubic. What is the degree there? Down and up or up and up? Okay. So these kind of x-intercepts that I have graphed up here, what we're going to consider these. Okay. If it's a linear factor, it's going to we're going to call just cross. It's just going to go right through the x-axis. That's it. If it is squared, we're going to consider that a bounce. Yes, ma'am. Yes. If it is cubic, we're going to call that a twist. Just so and this is to get an idea as to what this graph is going to look like. Okay. Just so you remember the degree of the polynomial, that is just the highest exponent. Okay, which we've talked about that quite a bit today. So hopefully you're on the same page. And let's make sure that we are good on our writing those in behaviors. Okay, and actually writing it out. Okay, so if it's an odd degree, when A is positive, so both the ones up there that we have, the cubic and the linear, those are odd degrees. As x approaches infinity, what does y do? Infinity. As x approaches negative infinity, what does y do? Negative infinity. Alright? If the a value is positive, so think about that linear and that cubic reflected over the x-axis. As x approaches infinity, what does y do? Negative infinity. Those two will change. As x approaches negative infinity, what does y do? Think about a linear line like this. As x moves to the left, is y going up or down? Up. On an even degree, as x approaches infinity, and be looking at that parabola up there, as x goes to the right, is y going up or down? Up. As x goes to negative infinity, or to the left, is y going up or down? Up. And if that parabola is reflected, what are those two values? Positive or negative infinity? Negative. So same thing, just with negative infinity at the ends. Okay, so get that written in there real quick. Let's look at what we're going to call the root behavior. So make sure you get this definition down here. So it says root behavior. The power of the factors determines how the graph moves at the root. And that's that cross, bounce, twist I was talking about. Okay, so if we have a power of 1, that is going to cross. An example of that, if I have x plus 3, what's the x-intercept if the factor is x plus 3? Negative 3. And so that would just, wherever negative 3 over there, negative 3, it's crossing right there. If that factor has an even power, it is going to bounce. So if it is x plus 2 squared, plus 3 squared, let's keep with the same intercept. You have the same x-intercept, but now it's just going to bounce at negative 3 instead of cross. And an odd degree greater than 1, it's going to twist. You get in this case? And so if we had x plus 3 cubed, right there at negative 3, you get that twist look, okay, instead of just going straight through like a power of 1. Alright, so go to the back. So you're going to be given these equations, and they're going to be in factored form, so we can determine how that graph is going to look and where on the graph it's doing that. Okay? So first let's find our root. So looking up there at number 1, Jeremy, what are our 3 roots going to be?
-2, +1, and +3.
Okay. Casey, what's the degree of this one going to be? What would the degree of this whole thing be right here? And this is tough because we haven't looked at a degree in this form. If I was to multiply those 3 linear equations together, linear factors together, what degree would I end up with? Cubed. Okay. So if you have 3 linears, okay, eventually in that whole process that, you had some of those questions on the quiz that you just took, eventually you're going to do x times x times x, which is going to give you x cubed. Okay, is that an even or odd number? Odd. Is it positive or negative? Positive. Okay. And by positive, let me kind of expand on that. Whenever I multiply those 3 together, all my x terms, it's going to be positive x cubed. That's going to tell me whether or not it needs to look like that or like that. So an odd degree in behavior, as x approaches infinity, well, let's use the words on this. So if it's an odd degree, is it going to go down and up or up and up? Down and up. at the root behavior. Okay, so that's the cross, the twist, or the bounce. All of these are going to do what? Okay, and this is where you have to look at the degree of each individual factor. Yes, the whole thing is cubic, but it's comprised of 3 different linears. Okay, so they're all going to cross. It's going to look something like this whenever we get to this one, x minus 2 squared, well, that's squared, so at that x-intercept, it's going to bounce. But on this one, they're all linear, so they're all going to cross at those points. Okay, so I can come over here. I've got one at -2, I've got one at 1, and I've got one at 3. And because that A is positive, I know it's going to go in that direction. Okay, so let's look at this next one. Go through that same process. Okay, so what are my 3 roots going to be?
What's got 4 roots?
Nope.
Because the x. Okay. Well, 3 would be -2, 0, +2, 0, and then 6, 0.
Awesome.
Or the -6.
Next step. There you go.
With the exponent, wouldn't it double -2?
It would, but I would have x minus 2 and x minus 2, which is going to give me the same one, right? Okay. So, what is the degree on this one going to be? And all you really have to do is just kind of add up the degrees. What's the degree of this factor? What's the degree of this one? What's the degree of this one? So what's the degree of it as a whole? 4. So that is an even degree. And it is going to be positive because I don't really have any negatives up there. We'll see one of those here in just a minute. Okay, so right now we're still just dealing with an even positive. That tells me if it's an even degree and positive, is it going to open up or is it going to open down? It's going to open up. Okay, so it's giving me an idea as to what this graph is going to look like. So the end behavior, is this going to be up, up, or down, up? Up, up. So we'll talk about where the bounce is exactly. So let's take each one of these x-intercepts. I had -2, I had 2, and I had -6. Okay. The factor that gave me -2, was that linear or was that a quadratic? Linear. So it's going to cross right there. It has a degree of 1. The factor that gave me 2, what was its degree?
That's
2.
That's be a bounce.
So that's going to be a bounce. Is it going to cross, bounce, or twist at -6? Cross. So I've got an x-intercept at -6, which is off the graph a little bit. I've got one at -2. And I've got one at 2. So what this one will look like. It's going to go through there. It's going to cross at 2. -2, I mean, and then it's going to bounce at 2. Okay, it won't go all the way through the x-intercept. Or the x-axis, I'm sorry. Questions so far on those 2? Where did you get this? Where did you get that? Okay. Alright, going to number 3. Peyton, tell us what our 3 roots are going to be. Okay. Roslyn, what is the degree of this one going to be? 6. That's an even number. my A value is going to be positive. So if it's even, if it's an even degree and it's a positive A value, what's the end behavior? Up, up. Okay. Let's go through and write the root behavior underneath each one. At -2, what is that behavior going to be? Cross. At -5, twist. And at 3, bounce. And let's talk about, now we'll kind of see what that looks like, that twist. And I mean, I've kind of showed you, just not on a graph yet. So I've got one at, oh, where are they at? -5. I've got one at -2. And I've got one at 3. It's going to cross at 5. Okay, at that -2, it's going to do that twist. So it kind of looks like that, but it still goes through it. And then at 3, it will bounce.
Yeah, I thought it twisted at 5.
It did twist at 5, so let's do that again. So it's going to twist at -5. It's going to cross at 2, and then bounce at 3. Thank you, Eden. Seem pretty simple so far? Okay. The last two are, they got something in there that's a little different. I kind of hinted at it already, but so the roots on number 4, Journey, what are they? Spencer, what is the degree of that one? Do what? Okay. Is that because you were asleep back there? What's the degree of this factor? 1. The x plus 2, number 4. That has a degree of 1. Okay, there's no exponent. This has a degree of what? The second one. The third one. And you add all together. So it'll be 5. Okay? So that's an odd. Is my A value going to be positive or negative? Negative. Okay, look at the very front. You got that -2. Okay, so it's odd, which usually means down and up, but it's reflected. So what's my end behavior going? My end behavior going to be up and down. It's going to start off up, and then it's going to end up going down. Let's talk about the root behaviors on them. Jeremy, what's it going to do at -2? At -1?
Twist.
And at +1?
Cross.
Okay. So it's going to cross. There's not a lot of room in there for the twist, but you can get it in there. And it's going to come back down and cross at +1. And let's do this last one. Tanner, what are the roots on the last one?
-2, 0, 1, 0, and 4, 0.
Okay. Samuel, what's the degree?
6.
That is even. Jacob, is it going to be positive or negative?
Negative.
So Jade, what is my in behavior going to be?
Would it be down, down?
Down, down. And Lily, my root behavior at -2 is going to do what? Lily. Not Lily, next class. Callie, sorry.
-2 would be bounce,
And at 1,
twist,
and at 4. Okay? So -2, 1, 4. In behavior is down, down, so I start down and I work my way up at first. So at -2 it bounces. At 1 it twists. And at 4 it crosses.